Great. First off, thank you for having me for today's session. It's an honor to addressing all of you. And second, I guess I have been given the tough task of waking you up at the twilight hour of any conference, which is the time to 3 to 4. I might be stopping you from your coffees, but I hope I get you excited enough that you have some meat for conversation during your coffees. Okay. So maybe a short introduction about myself. Okay. Beyond my day job, I am a mom to a precocious 10-year-old with tons of questions, a plant parent to more than 100 plants at home. I'm a bookworm whose idea of fun over the weekend is maybe snuggling in with a coffee and a book. And yes, I am a strategist, a thinker, and admittedly, a technology nerd. I am the Deputy Head for the Capabilities and Transformation Centers at Societe Generale Global Solution Center. At the Capabilities and Transformation Center, we work towards creating strategies which help SocGen be ready for the future. We have an innovation arm that works towards understanding what are the key trends that are happening in the market and which of these trends could potentially impact us. What are the decisions we should be taking in as a business in order to be ready for the future? We work on experimentation of new technology trends from blockchain to quantum to AR/VR to bringing in the right technology next step for our IS infrastructure. We also invest on the incubation of new capabilities within the organization, and some of the capabilities on which we have been investing quite actively over the last couple of years are that of the data and AI centers, cybersecurity, transformations, ESG, and cloud. With that, my talk for today is leading on the edge of a tech avalanche. And with this talk, I wish to achieve 3 things. The first thing, I would like to get all of you to kind of agree with me that today we are at the best times of technology. As technologists, we are at a great time. The second, we'll go through some of the technologies, we'll kind of crystal gaze together to seeing what are the steps that we need to take to get ourselves ready and also to lead on the edge of a tech avalanche. And last but not the least, I would like all of you to leave today's session with a certain level of optimism and tons of ideas on how do you prepare yourselves, your teams, and your organization. So why technology avalanche? Why not technology evolution? I guess we all have been talking about evolution in the last couple of conversations that have been happening, right? Okay, let me try to explain that to you with this. So as you see over here, the amount of technology change that has happened over the last decade, over the last 100 years, versus all the technology changes that have happened in the last couple of millennia. Am I talking about an avalanche? Indeed, because an avalanche starts with a very, very small change, like a snowball, and the moment it starts to grow, it gets in momentum, and at its own speed and weight is what helps it increase its overall impact. And that's exactly what is happening over here. Not convinced? I'll take to the next one. Okay, so the first graph, is this legible for the people in the back? Can I get a shout out? You can? Great. Okay, so how do we read this and how does it prove that we are at an avalanche? So if you see here, the first one is about the computational capacity of a supercomputer. And here we are looking at a span of somewhere around 7 years, from 93 to 2000. And you see the number of gigaflops that were used for computations by the supercomputers were somewhere between 500 and we went up to somewhere around 10,000. Compare it with the last couple of years that we have seen, and in that we have seen a growth from somewhere of 100 million to 1 billion. The next one. Any of you have used Orkut? Does Orkut have a resonance? That's it? Oh, I'm suddenly feeling quite old. That's it? Okay. So, as you see over here, Orkut was somewhere in the early 2000s. Is that right? Yeah. The number of people who used Orkut at that time versus now. Is anyone over here who does not use social media? Two people in this entire room who don't use social media. I'd like to catch hold of both of you outside. Okay, so what you see over here is the massive increase in social media. It is a technology platform that has enabled us to communicate with each other. I'll throw in another fact if you're not convinced. The total amount of data that exists in the public space today, your data, my data, 90% of that data was generated in the last 2 years. Are the data enthusiasts over here excited about this number or not? Okay. Okay, that was a very lackluster yes, but okay, we'll go with that. Okay, now with that, here is another graph, and this is my last case to tell why the last decade and this decade is a very, very important decade for us technologists. You see that graph over there, that small graph which is going sloping around this way? That's the water heaters graph. You know, the growth of the water heaters technology took us 60 years, okay? And the growth of the mobile phone has been less than 30 years, okay? I think 1973 was the first mobile phone. And can anyone guess what was the weight of the mobile phone in 1973? 1 kg? Let's double it, 2 kgs. Okay? So that was the weight. And how many of you don't have a phone on this floor? Is there anyone? Okay, we have broken a record on social media then. So that's where we are, and that's the rate of technology increase. I would rest my case over here that with every new technology change that happens, we increase the rate of a technology change for the next generation. And with that, given that the evolution is happening at that speed, I'll open up this question to all of you, maybe. Is there a trend you think is going to impact us massively over the next 10 years? If you were to be an oracle, what would it be? Any shout out? Anyone? ChatGPT? I should have expected it from a data and AI forum, indeed. Anyone else? That's it. Louder, louder, ladies. AR, VR, blockchain, ChatGPT. Okay, any use case you were really excited about? I can share a use case I am excited about. I'd like to have glasses which let me determine who am I speaking to. I'm pretty bad with names and faces. Yes, anyone?
Personalized education.
Personalized?
Education.
Education, personalized education, hyper-personalization, indeed. Thank you. So if we are talking about technologies and we're talking about use cases, I'm going to take you to a little bit of a crystal gazing on a couple of technology trends that are not entirely data and AI, and I thought I'll take a little bit of a different stab and appeal to your technology genes, okay? At the heart, I guess, these are a couple of technologies which could get you excited from two angles, as technologists and people who believe that technology and business cannot be separated, okay? So with that, the first technology that I'll talk about is adaptive AI. What is adaptive AI? Okay, give me an example of generative AI. The data and AI people, ChatGPT, thank you. Generative AI is ChatGPT, which allows you to generate content. It allows you to create documentation or information, say, as in the case of ChatGPT. It allows you to create code, as in the case of GitHub Copilot. And it allows you to create images, as in the case of DALL-E, right? Adaptive AI, in contrast to the traditional AI, is able to change its own code basis new information that it gets from its ecosystem new information that the developers of the code were not aware of when they created the code to start with. Okay, so technically what we are talking about is to have the entire base of adaptive AI be based on two things. One is agent-based, that is agent-based modeling that allows you to create simulation on specific factors that determine your model, and on reinforced learning. I'll give an example to explain this. Say we are talking about a supermarket, and say we are trying to create a model on what is the speed at which, say, the medicine counter is needs to be replenished. Okay, so that's the example. With that, for an agent-based modeling, you will go about to creating simulation against, say, 500 of the customers who have come in. So essentially, you are bringing in behavioral patterns of each of those 500 customers, and then you create an ABM on it. It's a little different from the queue modeling that you would do and go the ABM route. Then you create data observability, wherein you are establishing the capture of business indicators at the right levels, so that they then get fed into a feedback loop. You have a reinforced learning model that is created, and you use something called continuous intelligence decision patterns, which is essentially the design patterns that link the decisions that are generated by your model with your underlying processes. With that, you build in event streaming, and then you go about the entire cycle of adaptive AI. An example of this is in the case of the US Army. It is used for the training, combat training of the US Army. So why it matters? I guess all of you would agree with me that adaptive AI is extremely crucial if you're talking about speed and agility, and specifically if you want to be ahead of the curve. All of you, I guess, will know the time it takes as of now to create models. This is what helps you leapfrog. How do you go about establishing the game plan? I think at the base of any kind of modeling that we do, we need to have a robust AI engineering practice. With that, we need to have a framework that has been created so that every decision that gets generated is actually fed in to your business processes. You need to have a strong capability of having data observability so that you're able to capture the information and then put it into your feedback loop for reinforced learning. Last but not the least, like any other AI model that has to be successful in the business context, there has to be a resilient change management that has to be done. The second trend that I like to talk about is super apps. While I have the example of our Tata Neo app, would any of you like to volunteer a super app to me? Any name? Okay, let me just explain what a super app is, and then maybe some ideas might come in on what they are. A super app is an ecosystem. It's a platform that has many, many smaller apps that have been embedded into it. Okay, it's an ecosystem of businesses. It's an ecosystem of developers. Okay, can you still think of an example? WeChat, thank you. Anything else? WeChat? Zomato, Swiggy, to a certain extent, I think they are not yet there. Does the Paytms ring a bell? Yes, okay. So I guess you're getting the gist of it. We are talking about a kind of a cosmos of apps, but the apps that have been built in a way, in a seamless design so that they have a cohesive look and feel. They have an intent to bring in the user needs all together to one platform, and one need kind of corresponds to the other. Why is this crucial? It is crucial because it helps you with two big aspects. One, it helps you with customer acquisition. If you have come up with a particular app and you want to have your own startup, for you to acquire a customer versus if your app is on a super app which is already having access to a wide customer base, there's a big difference. So it makes business sense to be a part of a thriving ecosystem. The second one is that, so there is economies of scale, that is, and a network effect. The more people that come onto a platform, the lower the per customer cost for the service that is being provided. So for a customer also, it is a better value for money. And maybe the third and the most important one for the data enthusiasts here, there is a massive amount of data which could be cross-utilized between the various services that are there. Now, while we go about creating super apps, the most important aspect of this is creating the business ecosystem. For all the developers out here, I don't think creating an open AI platform, an open API platform is a big deal. I guess we can go about to creating that. But how do we ensure that we have a strong platform engineering that team that exists, that is able to create the right frameworks so that every time there is an application development or deployment, that entire process is seamless. And second, you have a robust design team that is able to give the unified experience to your customers. Okay, so with that, the third technology trend that I want to talk about is on digital immune systems. Now, digital immune systems work in a very similar way as the immune systems of our own bodies. Okay, so how would that happen? We're talking about, say, for your own body, every time you get a flu, what happens? Your body resists the flu, it fights the flu back, and then it creates a kind of a resistant and immunity for itself, so that the next time the same flu virus attacks you, you are able to deal with it much better. Similarly, for a digital immune system, what we do is we create an observability stack, we collect the data at the right points for the process, we do threat modeling, and with chaos engineering, we are able to create instances or scenarios by which we may not have foreseen in the past. We create an auto-remediation pack, and we have an MDR response kit that is created that plans to hit the attack back again. With that, we create a simulation and a validation mechanism, and we follow the whole track again. Now, you would say this is something we are already doing in most of our organizations, right? To which I will ask you to think back again. There are quite a number of new technology stacks that are coming up in the cybersecurity space, starting from the range of the DIS technologies, from intrusion detection and prevention systems to the CM models. These are some of the technologies I'd like you to have a look at. And for the AI experts here, you have a massive role to play, because the entire concept of threat modeling lies on how you perceive the various threats that are existing externally and internally, and how do you go about to create models for that mimic and predict the future scenarios. The next technology that I have for all of you is metaverse. I guess some of you did speak about this tech when we started off. Now, metaverse is not exactly one technology, it's a stack of technologies. It allows you to get yourself immersed into a digital world. It allows you to create a digital twin of yourself, have an avatar for yourself. It allows us to create new virtual economies. It is persistent, and it has infinite possibilities. Have any of you experienced a digital reality experience? Anyone? Okay. So this is an area which I don't think most of the organizations are really mature at. Most of the organizations are starting to invest on this slowly, and my recommendation to all of you here is upskill on this technology, but don't go hands-on and full into this space, because the whole space is yet to evolve. While the most important thing that we all in the metaverse space are grappling with are what are the use cases that can be interesting for the business. And my take, there are two areas where metaverse could have a massive impact for organizations. One, for our clients, how do you do your marketing better? How do you acquire your customers better? How do you deal with their needs better, and how do you retain them? And second, to the most important element for any organization, it's employees. So employee experience, how do you create tangible, immersive employee experiences for learning through metaverse? There was an example that was told earlier about hyper-personalized learning. I would venture in to say that immersive learning is the next thing. With this, while I'm talking about metaverse, again, the advice that I would give to all of you is that this is a good time to upskill yourselves on some of the technology aspects of metaverse. And from the AI space, the generative AI is an extremely useful component or a technology that you would like to upskill yourself on. Imaging is another area which can be highly, highly useful. And with that, I think metaverse, if you are ready, there are many, many use cases that can come up in the future, and it helps you to grow your own profiles as well as the business for your organizations. Now, while we have talked about all technologies, it will be highly remiss of me if I do not cover the aspect of sustainable IT. And why so? It's not a new trend, right? I guess all of you have heard of sustainable IT. Anyone who has not heard of sustainable IT? Okay, everyone has either heard of sustainable IT or I have lost the audience by now. Okay. Now, sustainable IT is a very, very important concept. It has existed since a couple of years, but it is gaining more and more traction now. Why? So I'll throw in some certain statistics for you to get you on board on the sustainable IT bandwagon. First, around in 2007, the entire IT and communications industry added approximately 1.5% of the entire carbon footprint. You guys are with me? Can anyone take a guess by 2040, what is going to be the carbon footprint that will be added by this industry? Any number? Anyone? 30%? Too high. No? Any other number? 1.5? I think we are closest there. It's around 14% by 2040. Thank you. So that's the amount of carbon that we are generating. Okay. If you're still not convinced, for the data and AI teams out here, if I have an AI model which is going towards clustering of, say, flowers, okay? I take all the flowers around and do a clustering of all the flowers to identify what is the biological name of a particular flower. Okay, if I have to do this and I want to reach an accuracy of 96%, the amount of energy that this model will consume is around 100 joules. You guys are with me on that? Okay. Now, if I want to increase its accuracy, I guess all of you like to have more accurate models. If I increase its accuracy by approximately 2%, the amount of energy that the AI model generates or rather consumes would be, any guesses? 3000 joules. Now, if I try to increase from 98 and increase the accuracy by 0.008%, can you guess on how much energy this model is going to consume? 400% of the first model. Okay? So with that, if you want to leave the world for the next generation in a state that they could also enjoy, because the poor things obviously can't do anything for the world that they get from us, sustainable IT is highly important for this group. So on the sustainable IT space, while it is extremely important for the organizations from the carbon scoring, their reputations, brand images, what is it that the people here in this room need to do in order to be sustainable in the models that you create? Here, I would suggest first, look at the AI models that you generate. Take a conscious, tangible call between the accuracy that your systems are having versus the amount of energy that is being generated. Look at the sources of data and continue to have models that monitor the carbon footprint that is being generated by your models. And last but not the least, please do work with your infrastructure teams to seeing how you can reduce the consumption of the data centers. That is, if you know how to manage your data well, invest on infrastructure as a service so that you have more optimized data usage, and also see if you can have better cooling systems that can be invested upon for the servers that are used by your models. With that, I rest the case on the technology changes that are happening in the market. Now, given that I have, I guess, convinced you about that it is a technology avalanche, are you convinced? A yes would be good. Yes. Thank you, thank you. So what do you do to lead it, not adapt it? The women in this room need to lead, and the few men as well. Yes, it's a rare scenario, but it's a good scenario to see few men and more women. Yeah. So we start with experimentation. You need to know why you are investing your time and your career on a particular tech, whether it has a business value. If it does, go about to upskilling yourself and your teams. You need a tribe to succeed. You then invest on that technology and that particular business case in order to bring in value to your customers, have a cross-functional impact story that is created, make it sustainable. While you are at it and making massive business, make it sustainable, and yes, don't stop experimenting. With that, I will rest my case. Thank you. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience.